Right, hello there ladies and gentlemen and welcome to today's video. Today's video is one I've been meaning to get done for quite some time now because it seems to be a question that keeps popping up every now and again. Well, I say every now and again. At the moment it seems to be like 2 or 3 times a day. So basically what we're going to go through today is general equipment you need to be doing PCB rework. Now we already have a video. If you're interested in getting into BGA rework, for the sort of stuff that you're going to need to do that and do it well, I will link that there in an annotation just here. So feel free to pop by and just click that if you're interested in BGA rework. Today we're not going to be covering BGA rework in this video. We're going to be covering the general tools and equipment you need to do PCB rework. So that's stuff like HDMI port replacements, just general surface mount work. So repairing traces, replacing ICs, all that sort of stuff really. So yeah, so this is just a general basic kit you're going to need to do PCB rework with. So if you're here because you've been on the HDMI replacement tutorial video and you're wanting to know exactly what kit you're going to need with makes, brands, models, maybe where I got them from if I can remember, then you've landed on the right place. Alternatively, if you have asked me about various bits and pieces of equipment and about what they are and what my settings are and everything else, then again you will probably have found that I have just thrown you here to this video. Like I say, it's not because I'm being a funny bugger, it's simply because I get asked this so much that I thought it would be useful to have a video where all this can be found in one place that we can update as we go along, where you can find all that information and you can find it at your own leisure. And I don't have to sort of repeat myself several times a day, so that's all good. So yes, so in other news, I am still alive, obviously. Hello, this is me. I know it's been a little bit quiet on the channel. Those of you who are a little bit closer to me may very well know that I'm actually expecting my first baby next week. In fact, she should already be here, but she's not. In fact, she's far too comfortable in her mummy's tummy, I think. So I might be donning a pair of these before too. No, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going there. But yes, suffices it to say she's not coming out, and she's not showing any sign of coming out anytime soon either. So they may very well have to make her come out next week. But we will see. So yes, the last few weeks has been manic and has been spent running around getting the various final bits and pieces ready for the impending arrival. So apologies, it has been a little bit quiet on this channel of late. I did film some stuff in advance. I used all that a couple of weeks ago and just simply haven't had time to get around to doing anything. So the bits and pieces that I do get around to doing will be the stuff that's most requested. This has been, people have been asking me this sort of stuff all the time. So this is sort of like priority number one I want to get out of the way. So we're going to go through, like I say, the basic bits and pieces that you're going to need to do PCB rework. Some of it is really bare, essential stuff that you're definitely going to need. Some of it actually isn't that essential, but is really nice to have if you can afford it. So let's go through it. So first of all, probably the biggest question I get asked is, what soldering iron do you use? What settings do you have your soldering iron on? Yada, 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 yada. The basic answer to that one is, and I'm going to take you out of the tripod for this one because it's right over the other side of the desk. This is my soldering iron. There, it is a Jovi iSolder 40. It is a very, very nice cartridge style soldering iron station. And it comes with this rather nifty little stand here, as you can see. I'll try and get a bit more light over there for you. It comes in that little stand there. That's the handle with the tip. And there we go. So I'm just going to pop you back in the tripod. So you've seen the base of the unit now. The base of the unit, of course, is set over there next to my air station. We're going to go over that one as well this afternoon. But for now, we're interested in this bit. So this here is the actual soldering iron itself. So this is the business end, if you like. This is the bit that does the damage. So the reason why I really like this one, to be honest, is because it is a cartridge style system. So what is a cartridge style system? So basically a cartridge style system, and I believe I went over this in the BGA rework video as well if you're looking for a bit more information on this. But essentially you have two different styles of soldering iron. You've cartridge type style soldering stations, and as you can see, this one has a really big, long cartridge style tip. It basically called cartridge because it literally inserts and clips in and pulls back out. So changing the tip on these is incredibly easy. You don't have to switch the soldering iron off to do that. You can literally change tips on the fly. It's so easy to do. As you can see, you know, we've got a big bullet style tip in there. We can take that one out. We can put the pencil style tip in there. And as you can see, you know, it's as quick and easy as that. This particular station will heat things up. So various bits and pieces, various tips will heat up within sort of like literally 3 to 5 seconds from cold. For anybody who's used a cheap, standard, traditional style soldering station will know that actually getting them to heat up is a pain in the backside. Sort of like the quickest ones are sort of like 30 to 60 seconds. You know, bit of a pain in the backside. Some take 2 or 3 minutes, you know. So a traditional style station will have a handle a bit like this, but the heating element will actually stick out the top, and the bits and pieces that you put on the ends look a bit like this. So they're really tiny, short things. They've got a hole in the bottom. They literally just pressure fit over the heating element, and that's how it conducts the heat. Several problems with these. The main one is the actual reliability of the temperature control that you get out of them, or should I say lack of reliability of temperature control you can get out of them. They are quite prone to overshooting temperature, and that's a bit of a problem if you're doing delicate stuff like BGA rework where you're actually cleaning pads and things with these. The reason for that is because the heating element is actually in the handle of the station on a traditional style soldering iron, and the real problem with that is that, you know, you've got a lot of material there, a lot of ceramic material that's conducting the heat, and basically, like I say, this just pressure fits over the end of the heating element. And the problem with that is because ultimately the work you're doing is right there on the end of the tip. The actual temperature probe and things is right back here in the handle. So the temperature on the end of there, as you can imagine, is going to be quite a bit different to the temperature it's actually measuring here. So the heat loss through the actual tip of the iron isn't very closely monitored, and what can happen is it will take it several seconds for this thing to realize that it's losing temperature. So it'll ramp the temperature right up, by which time the end of this has overshot that temperature, and that can be the difference between lifting pads and burning them out, of actually just getting a really rather nice job done. The nice thing with these cartridge style stations is because the actual heating element here is built into the tip and goes right into the end of the iron, the temperature regulation is measured here at the tip rather than right back here in the handle, which means that the temperature it's measuring is the temperature at the end of the tip where you're actually doing your work. So the temperature regulation is actually incredibly accurate on these things and makes it very, very difficult for the temperature to overshoot unless you're being purposely careless. It's quite difficult to ruin boards and BGAs and things like that with these style stations, particularly if you get one of decent quality. Now, this particular one is a Jovi Solder 40, as I went over. I bought this from bgareworkstation.co.uk. At the time, it was £120. I think it was on offer because these days you can usually find them for about 140 quid. So I dropped lucky. You may be able to do the same, possibly. But that's where I bought mine from. You know, so it's actually a very, very nice station. As I say, these cartridge style tips here. Depends what you want, really. I have a mixture. So the only downside with these style stations is the fact that the tips are a little bit more expensive. You know, if you've got one of these traditional style things here, you could probably pick a tip up for probably less than £1, to be honest. With these things, you're not so lucky. If you stick to the original Jovi tips, and like me, you are based in the UK, you will struggle to find anywhere in the EU that actually supplies them, which is a little bit odd. But yeah, you're going to struggle to actually find a reseller for the actual official Jovi tips. I actually ended up buying this. This is a Jovi JV TP5 tip. It's a shovel tip. It's actually very nice and works really well for BGA and things like that, and soldering ground pins on HDMI ports on PlayStations, and you know, areas of the board which are going to require a lot of heat, to build up into the board. So really sort of big connections. This is really great for. I actually had to buy this from the States. This one came from advancedreworks.com, who are a superb supplier. The tip itself was about 18 quid. The shipping itself was a fiver, so it cost me about 23 quid shipped just for that tip here in the UK. Not cheap, but it's lasted me 12 months and it's still going strong. As I say, advancedreworks.com are a very, very good supplier and highly recommended if you want to stick down the original Jovi route. The good news is that the Hakko T12 line of tips, which this is a Hakko T12i, actually are completely 100% compatible and have the same fitting. So if you can find one of these, then you are in the money. Now, these particular tips, and I've got a couple of Hakko tips. This one, as I say, is a Hakko T12i. This is the equivalent of the Jovi TP9 style tip. It's a little bit thinner. It's a little bit it is a little bit narrower at the tip. It's actually a little bit finer than the TP9. Now, the good news is that the Jovi TP9 is actually supplied by default with this handle, so you'll get a really fine tip supplied by default, which is quite useful. Now, the other good news is that if anybody has ever used a more traditional style soldering iron and had the heating element go out on them, the good news is the heating elements themselves are actually built into the tips. So if the heating element actually fails, you don't have to go fiddling with a handle or destroying it to actually replace the heating element or having to buy a new handle. You literally just replace the tip. Now, at 23 quid a time, that's not cheap. Now, my TP9 tip did actually die, and I was all prepared to go spend another 23 quid for a TP9 tip from the States. Until I actually realised that the Hakko line of tips looked like they'd fit, and they do, and they work absolutely perfectly. This is a Hakko T12i. As I say, it's an incredibly fine pointed tip. It's a little bit finer than the TP9 that it replaced, and it did take a little bit of getting used to, I'm going to be honest, because it is a little bit finer. It doesn't conduct the heat as well as what the TP9 tip does. Because it is finer, the heat loss through there, it doesn't actually absorb heat into the board as quickly or as easily as what the TP9 does. The TP9 is a very, very nice compromise between size and ability to chuck heat into the board. These are a little bit fine. Certainly if you're doing PlayStation HDMI ports, you've probably got to, at first, I wonder what the hell I'd done, to be honest. I thought I was going to have to buy some new tips. Or maybe even just go for a TP9. But what I will say is now I've got used to it. Rather than using the tip or the point of the tip, actually all I do is I use the flat. So I just hold it slightly down. So the actual pins on the HDMI port are actually soldered more with the flat than they are on the tip. And that actually works really nicely. So, I slightly modify my approach to it, but not by much. And to be honest now, I really don't care about the difference between the TP9 and these T12i tips. And to be honest, these are really nice, fine, and they're a little bit finer at the tips. So these are a little bit more versatile as well, I actually find. And this particular tip was, I think, was it £4.50 delivered directly from China via AliExpress? £4.50 delivered to the UK is a damn sight more palatable than 23 quid from the States, isn't it? So from that point of view, it's very, very highly recommended that you actually get one of these things. And that's bloody hell. That's highly recommended if you've actually, got one of these things, or you're just looking for a cheaper alternative to the mighty expensive tips. Which are supplied by Jovi, because, as I say, the Hakko tips are completely interchangeable. Now, £4 odd, I wasn't expecting a lot out of these. There were Hakko tips and everything else. So I thought, yeah, of course they are. They'll probably be cheap Chinese knockoff clones, but actually they're not. They're properly packaged, genuine Hakko tips. God knows, maybe they're just cheaper in China because, there's a lot of electronics shops and things like that over there. Maybe these things are just 10 a penny over there. This one is a very, very big shovel style tip, which is really great for using on BGA. And this one is a Hakko T12-1403. If you're doing BGA rework, this is incredibly useful for cleaning boards and chips and doing them very, very quickly, very, very nicely. As you can see, it's curved on one end, and it's sort of like a very fine point at the other. if you can really see that. There we go. You can probably sort of see it a little bit there. So you just hold it flat to the board and scrape it along with a bit of braid underneath there, and it cleans things off really, really quickly and really easily. So yep, that's highly recommended too if you're doing BGA. I know we said we weren't really going to touch on BGA, but there we go. This thing here is added aftermarket. This particular thing here isn't default with the Jovi. It comes with a sponge, but this was a couple of quid off eBay. It's basically just a piece of wire wool in a nice little container. And that's really nice for cleaning your tips off as opposed to, the horrible wet sponges that fall to bits and go a bit manky over time. So yeah, the cartridge style station is very highly recommended. Jovi, as I say, do the iSolder 40, and this is highly recommended. It's about 140 quid at the moment, I believe, from various resellers around the web. Highly recommended. If you have an affinity to a particular brand, Hakko do them, of course, because these are Hakko tips. Weller do some, but they're on the expensive side, I think it's fair to say, but they can be had from other suppliers. So AliExpress, highly recommended for the Hakko tips. I believe I've got the reseller for those stored in my favourites on the app on my phone. If I do, I will try and link their web store. It took 3 to 5 days to get here from the UK for that. I've actually bought a couple at the time because they were so cheap, just in case that one actually goes out again. So highly recommended. So, yep, the Hakko tips and the Jovi iSolder 40 station. If you are looking for a new soldering iron, highly, highly recommended there. So the next one, and the other sort of thing that I get asked a lot about is my hot air rework station. And people who know me will know that I'm very, very critical of hot air stations in general because it is easier to find a bad one than it is a good one. Now then, you will have to excuse the mess on my desk. I've been doing a little bit of work over the last couple of days, and it's just a bit of a shit sty. I'll try and get you some light over there. There it is, poking out the back of my thingamajiggery bobby doobie firkin, my microscope there. This one, as you can see, and we'll try and get you some zoomage. There we go. This particular one that I have here is a quick 861DW. And to be honest, this thing is incredible, and I love it to bits. I used to have an IOE 968. In fact, I do still have it. I keep meaning to flog the bloody thing, to be honest, but me and the IOE just didn't get on. I think it's fair to say. I thought it was about as much use as a chocolate fireguard. It was fine for doing general surface mount stuff, but for doing anything like HDMI ports, it just took too long to do. You'd be stood there for 5 or 6 minutes trying to get enough heat into the board to actually get these things to come out, and it was just a misery. This thing is amazing. The Quick 861DW is a 240 volt station, so it's ideal for those in the UK. There is a slightly more powerful version, the 861DS, I think. The difference in cost is about 70 quid. It depends what you're using it on, obviously, but for doing general PCB rework and PlayStation HDMI ports and things like that, so laptop, motherboards and stuff like that, it's going to be really easy to do, and it's going to be perfectly suitable for that. If you're doing sort of like really, really big sort of BGA and things like that, then you might want the DS. I would imagine that'll make it a little bit easier, but for what we use it for what I use it for, the 861DW is absolutely fine. So it goes up to 120 litres of air per minute, which is quite some going, and it will go up to 500 degrees C. It's really, really simple to use. Basically, it's got temperature controls there on the left. It goes up and down for temperature. On the right there, up and down for airflow. You can set 3 personalized favorite settings in there. So what it does is you basically press and hold either channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, and that will store the current set temperature and airflow. So, if you're using a certain setting a lot, then set them in there. And it's really, really easy to jump about between your various settings rather than having to go up and down on the settings all the time. To be honest, I usually leave mine at the same point. I usually use 100 litres of air per minute at 485 degrees C for doing PlayStation HDMI ports. That will get them out. I have actually slightly modified my installation technique since doing the tutorial video. I intend to do a tutorial version 2 with my updated installation method, which I just find works a little bit nicer for me. So we'll go over that at some point in the future. In fact, I do have one to do, so hopefully that's going to get done some point this week. But yeah, that's a really, really nice station. So it's really easy to use, as you can see. You know, there ain't much in the way of settings there. The power button's on the front rather than the back, so turning it on and off is nice and easy too. You get this nice chunky air hose and this lovely chunky handle as well. It's actually it's got magnets in the base as well. It's a really heavy base, so it's nice and sturdy. You're not going to knock it over and piss about like that. Yeah, so it's got magnets in the end of the handle. And what it does, it has interchangeable tips too. It's supplied with 3. This is the biggest of the lot. I'm not entirely sure how wide that is, to be honest. It looks like it might be 7 or 8 mil in diameter, something like that. But that is the biggest of the 3 tips supplied. It does come with 3 or 4 tips, which are in a box somewhere. But yeah, those just clip in and out. They're literally just clip in and out, on and off. So they're really easy to change over to. Yeah, so this has magnets in the handle, as I say, and what happens is as soon as you lift it out of the station, it will turn itself on. As soon as you dock it again, it will actually initiate a cool down cycle. So it doesn't just kill the temperature, it ramps it down gradually and increases the airflow to actually cool the heating element while it's not in use. So that's really cool. So that'll extend the lifetime of the heating element and things like that. So yeah, that is very, very highly recommended, and it's a world away from the IOE. Now, here's the interesting thing, because I am pretty critical of IOE and all this sort of stuff. And to be fair, you know, it's not that it's generally bad kit. I think the thing is I've got a friend who does a lot of PCB rework, and he's very, very highly qualified in it too. He has some IOE kit, and he has no problem with his. Mine was about as much use as a chocolate ornament. And, you know, I have used his, and his was actually perfectly fine. At the end of the day, the thing is, this particular station was delivered to me in the UK. I bought it through an official EU supplier to Quick, who are called Sir Martin. They are They are based in Germany and Poland in the EU and are official EU suppliers. They shipped this particular unit to me via their eBay store. I think it was about £230 delivered to the UK. And you know, I haven't looked back since. Now, these particular stations are based on a licensed Weller design, so absolutely top quality kit, and the design is obviously it's well tried, tested, and versed, and everything else. The actual construction inside these machines, you know, you would expect it to maybe be a bit on the cheap side, but actually it's not. The construction of these things is actually top notch, and rather like Pros Kit and things like that. They're a Chinese manufacturer, but they're a Chinese manufacturer who focus more on quality than quantity, as opposed to IOE, who are sort of like, you know, build them cheap, stack them tall, and sell them cheap. So, to be honest, 230 quid. The IOE I had was, I think, was about 90 quid. So yeah, you know, it's a world away in performance and not that much different in price. And if you're going to be doing a few of these, it's definitely well worth the time. Don't waste your time with IOE, Whip, and all these you know, Baku is another one I've seen, which is just a plain rip-off of Hako. And having seen a review by Lewis Rossman on one of the Baku stations, yeah, I think it's safe to say you are definitely best off investing the money elsewhere in something like that than you would be on something like the cheap end load of old shite that you're just going to be sat around. You know, you're going to sit around in 6 months' time thinking, why the hell did I bother? Because you're just going to end up buying something like this anyway. If you have money, no object, and you know you are literally willing to burn a hole in your bank account, then obviously the JBC stuff is top of the line. It's also a top of the line price. It's about £2 for an air station. So yeah, you know, I'm a hobbyist. This is perfect for what I use it for. If you are doing it in a day in, day out, and you are, you know, doing some really heavy duty hot air work, then yeah, obviously, you know, you're probably going to want something top notch like a JBC. But no, for general PlayStation-y stuff, this is absolutely perfect, and I couldn't recommend it any more highly than I do. The same with the reseller. The reseller actually found the package was stuck in customs for about a week and a half. They were really good. They followed everything up with me. They kept me informed as to what was going on with the package, and you know, I couldn't proclaim either the Air Station or Sir Martin themselves any more highly than I do, and I would not hesitate to recommend that that's where you should go. They do have an eBay store, so if you are in the UK or the EU and you're after one, and you're after one nice and easy, then obviously, a quick visit there, buy it, pay through PayPal, etc., and you are done. So you can see this thing in action on several videos on this channel. You can see what it can do. As I say, I intend to update the HDMI replacement tutorial shortly. Again, you'll see exactly what we can do with that. So that's that one out of the way. The next thing, it's a little bit more mundane, unfortunately, but there you go. And it's kicking around my desk somewhere. Where is it? Because I've just seen it. In fact, I've just had my hands on it because I was playing with it earlier. It's solder. So solder. Now then, the thing is, here it is. Solder. This stuff is a reel of Silverline solder. It's 100 grams, so it's got plenty on there. It's 1 mil in diameter, so it's a bit on the thick side if you're doing anything delicate. But it's 60/40 tin lead. So 60% tin, 40% lead. It's multi-core. It does have some flux in there, rosin flux center, and it is highly recommended stuff. As I say, it's a bit on the thick side, for doing delicate stuff. But to be honest, if you're doing HDMI ports and things like that, you're only tinning the end of the iron and then conduct. It's perfectly fine for tinning pads. Getting a bit on the end of your iron to solder things in place. It's perfect for. You do have to be a little bit delicate because obviously you will pull it up on the end of your iron quite easily with it being a millimeter in diameter. But if you can find some slightly thinner stuff, I'd use it. But this got me out of a hole. I ran out, and this was a £5 for this big 100-gram reel in Toolstation in the UK. It's perfectly fine. It does the job. So yeah, you want leaded solder. Don't be touching the lead-free stuff. It's a nightmare to work with most things. It's generally horrible. Just stay away from it. Get some leaded stuff. Do yourself a favour. And make sure it's got a rosin core flux as well. Because, if it's got flux inside the stuff, I know you're probably going to add a little bit yourself anyway, but it does make things easier. So once we've done that, so that's the solder. So now we're on to desolder braid. So I've got a couple of bits of braid here. I've actually got a couple of bits and pieces. The thicker stuff I use is this stuff here. It's Servisol solder mop. This is a no clean flux installed inside the braid. It's really quite nice stuff. This particular reel is 10 meters of 2.5mm. I think it was about 13 quid from CPC Farnell in the UK. I believe Farnell have stores in the US as well. Is it Element 14 or something over there? So those are the suppliers of that to me. This, it's big 10-meter reel, works out a bit cheaper than buying the smaller reels. Yeah, very highly recommended stuff. I also have this. This is finer stuff. This is Chemtronic solder wick. This again is from CPC Farnell. Again, it's rosin cord, and this one is, I think it's 8mm. And it's 5 feet or 1.5 meters in length. Can't get this stuff in the larger rolls, unfortunately, so I had to buy a couple of the smaller roll. This is perfect for cleaning out ground holes for HDMI ports on PlayStations. It soaks up really well. It absorbs solder really well. It's just generally nice stuff to work with because obviously it's got the rosin flux impregnated into the braid. So yeah, very, very highly recommended stuff. Yep, very good. And I've also got some of this stuff as well, Servisol. It's the same stuff as what's in the larger reel. This is 0.8mm, 1.5 meter reel again. It's only got a tiny little bit left in that one there. That's nearly out. This stuff is 0.9mm, so it's a little bit thicker, a little bit wider. I actually prefer the 0.9mm for clearing out the HDMI port ground holes. I find it just a little bit easier than the 0.8. That being that little bit wider actually just helps it absorb that solder a little bit more easily in that confined space. So that stuff is very highly recommended. Again, Goot wick, stuff like that, quality braid, solder mop, Chemtronic stuff is going to be so much nicer to work with than cheap, generic, one hung low or fake stuff that you're going to find. That will just generally make your life a misery because it's just not very good. So yeah, that stuff's really nice. And the good stuff about this as well certainly the solder mop, is the actual braid itself is very, very fine. It's very, very soft. It's very, very easy to work with, which means it's very, very difficult to actually do damage to circuit boards or BGA if you're doing that sort of work. You won't, you know, I'm not saying you won't rip pads, but you'll find it difficult to destroy and ruin pads with stuff like this. Again, with the cheaper no-name one hung low stuff, it's very coarse. It's not very well weaved, and it can grab, and that's where you're going to have problems with quality stuff like that. To be honest, the cost difference is not a lot, but it's going to make your life easier. It's going to make the job easier. It's going to be quicker, and generally it's going to be better for the board and the equipment that you are repairing. So that's definitely recommended. Again, all that stuff was from CPC Farnell. It can be gained from other places too, but that's where I got mine from. The other stuff as well is we're going to go on to a bit of PPE for you. Now that I don't use eye protection, I probably should. I have ended up with stuff in my eyeballs before. It's not particularly pleasant. This stuff here, if I can actually get a decent shot on the camera with it, I'll try zooming the bloody thing back out, is some gloves. These are nitrile examination gloves. 200 in a box. These are medium size. They're non-latex. These came from Costco in a pack of 2. I think they were £8 for the big box of 200. So in total 400 gloves, £8. These are actually the ones I've got on. They're perfect. They don't, you know, they act as a really nice barrier against all sorts of nasty stuff like the isoprope, the flux and things like that. The general stuff that you're working with, you really don't want it on your skin. It's not nice stuff. The chemical makeup of it is pretty noxious. You don't want to be having it on your skin. You don't want it in your lungs. Yeah, so a decent pair of sort of barrier rubber gloves like this is well worth the investment. And for a couple of quid for 400, I've had them for months, and I'm still on the first box. Getting a bit on the low side, to be honest. I'm nearly running out. I'm going to be heading into the second box before long. But, you know, there you go. Speaking of not having it in your lungs, this is incredibly important, and I do wish people would take this one more seriously. Fume extraction, solder, leaded fumes, you know, tin fumes, bloody rosin core flux fumes itself. I mean, you know, we're going on to flux later on, but this stuff is nasty. You do not want to be breathing it in. And, you know, the stuff coming off the end of your iron and the stuff coming off your BGA rework machine is incredibly bad for you. Unfortunately, the actual rework station itself is hidden under my, sorry, the rework station, the fume extraction system itself is buried under my desk. And getting to the filters, it will be quite tricky, but I can assure you the next time I change a filter in that machine, I will show you on camera the stuff that comes out. And trust me, that stuff, if it's going into the filter, is going into your lungs if you don't have one. And to be honest, I'm pretty sure the human body has no way of dealing with the shit that comes out of these things. It'll sit in your lungs and you will have a bad time, trust me. So, fume extraction I have, and this is going to be incredibly difficult because there's not a lot of light under the desk. And it is under the desk as well. Is that thing there? That is a Weller WFE2ES. It has that big flexible hose that comes up and it goes there and it comes up the tube and down and along, and as you can see there, it ends in that funnel. That particular piece of equipment was purchased from a local supplier to me in Leeds, a shop there that does all this sort of stuff. And I happened to just get lucky and find it on eBay at 480 quid, I think it was. It's normally 650 quid. It can be found from suppliers like CPC Farnell. Again, anywhere that does that sort of electronics PCB rework stuff is going to stock stuff like this. You can find them on eBay, again, from, you know, resellers and things like that. They are a little bit more expensive again. They retail in the UK for about 600, 650 quid. I got lucky. As I say, they were a local supplier in Leeds. It was the last one they had. It was all brand new, boxed up, sealed and everything. It was absolutely brilliant deal. I rang them up, said I'd seen it, you know, just come down to the shop and pay cash for it. You know, save on the eBay and the PayPal fees how much, and they actually gave me a deal for 400 quid and he brought it to work for me, bless him. So, I can't remember the name of the shop, which is a shame, but it's in Leeds. So I dare say a quick Google will suffice and may actually show you the way. But yeah, you know, that was great. So 400 quid, brand new, fully boxed up and everything else. And this thing, because it's on the big thick the big thick, you know, flexi hose and things like that, it's really easy to manipulate it into position. It's got this big funnel here, which draws the air through and captures loads of horrible noxious gases and stuff. That little sort of twizzly knob thing there by my finger um, is actually a like a valve, so you can open and close it, so you can stop stuff going down it. You can turn the airflow off and things like that. It does have a serial port connection to hook it up to your PC, so you can control the airspeed and the airflow through there. I don't actually have that set up. I just leave it on full whack and I let it do its thing. So it is a really, really nice bit of kit there that you can use, and it's snowing like buggery outside. That's a bit of a problem. But anyway, back onto this sort of thing. So yeah, the WFE2ES. Hacko do some stations, but they're very, very difficult to find, like most Hacko stuff in the UK, to be honest. It's very, very difficult to find a supplier. So yeah, Weller WFE2ES. It's the Zero Smog line of equipment. It's a very, very nice kit. Very, very highly recommended. I wouldn't be without it. Simple as that. I would not be without this kit. I really wouldn't. You know, having seen what comes out of these things, it's not what you want to be breathing in. Even if you're not doing this a lot, I'm a hobbyist and I have this kit. If you're doing this for a living, seriously, and you don't have this, you, you know, it's up to you. But I'm pretty sure that stuff is not going to give you anything other than a horrible, truly terrifying disease, to be honest with you, if you breathe it in for any length of time. So the WFE2ES is highly recommended. If you aren't willing to, or you can't afford to stretch to that amount of money for one of these things, I can completely appreciate that. There are some cheap one hung low Chinese things you can find on AliExpress, which will do some sort of job. It's better than nothing. Even the little extractor fans with a charcoal filter on the back, bench mounted things, which is about 50-60 quid, are better than nothing. But I'll tell you what I did before I bought this. I actually went to Screwfix in the UK, who are a home hardware supplier. I bought a bathroom extraction fan set with a decent amount of airflow. It came with a length of flexi pipe. The flexi pipe went out through my open window, and I bought some cheap active charcoal filters for extraction fan hoods and put it in the opening of the fan, and had that set next to my work, and that did just as good a job, to be honest, at drawing out the airflow. This has obviously got a lot more airflow. This is a lot stronger, and obviously it has all the very fine sand filtration and things like that. So this is definitely better. But if you're on a budget and you don't want to be breathing that stuff in, trust me, then yeah, you could do a lot worse than to go to Screwfix, get yourself a bathroom fan extraction set, a bit of active charcoal foam from eBay for about £5 for a good amount of it. Yeah, and spend 5-10 minutes knocking that up, to be honest, and wiring a plug on the end of it. That's all I did, and it worked perfectly. In fact, I've still got it down there just in case I run into some issues with the Weller, but touch wood, that's not happened yet, so that's perfect. So that is extraction systems. So yeah, really, if you are doing this at all, you need some fume extraction. Other stuff, sundry stuff, tweezers. This is this is just generalized stuff really. But these are Vetus ESD safe tweezers. They're looking a bit sorry for themselves now because they've had one hell of a load of battering, but the ends are still good. They're still nice and fine at the end. I do have a nice new set downstairs which I keep meaning to bring up. I've also got a nice curved set which are at my mate's house, which I keep meaning to. I think I've said this before in another video. I need to go get those. But they are really cool. So a decent set of tweezers is a must. These actually came with something. I think they came with my actual old Rework station, yeah, I'm pretty sure they did. I got a couple of sets. Yeah, but they were cool. So a decent set of tweezers is cool. Side cutters. Where the hell are my side cutters? They're Draper ones, I'll tell you that much. And needle nose pliers as well. These are useful. You can get hold of bits and pieces. So I tend to hold HDMI ports with these as I'm lifting them off. The reason being is, of course, because once you start to rework the back of the port and you loosen it, it can tug a little bit to one side because the weight of the port actually falls out on its own. But obviously, that has it hasn't happened to me yet, to be honest. But I feel better just holding it with that and just generally letting it drop rather than just letting it fall out on its own. Because if it does fall out and it takes a pad with it, then obviously you're in trouble. If you're holding that and you can see it's coming loose and you can feel it wanting to move, but you've got hold of it, it just stops that. So that's nice. Plus, for pulling bits and pieces and twisting things, and it's just generally nice to have stuff that that's a bit big for tweezers. Um, these things are perfect. My side cutters, I don't know where the hell they've gone. Um, they should be in here. They probably are floating around my desk somewhere. Not behind there. No, they're just a basic set of side cutters, to be honest. I don't really use them for much apart from cutting wire. Yeah, so speaking of cutting wire, we've got these sundry tools, stuff like these. Nice little pair of wire strippers. Always useful. Cheap pair of scissors, again, is always good. We have things like these, assorted brushes. So this one is a really sort of coarse, stiff brush. I use that for cleaning with flux and things like that, and agitating the flux solution. This one here is a really nice sort of soft bristled thing, so I use this for once we've cleaned BGA components and things like that, and they can have a little bit of lint from the cloths. I just use that just to brush over the surface and just to get rid of that, of any dust or anything on there which may have garnered on it. So that gets rid of that. I do have a really tiny little brush as well, which again is fairly soft bristled. In fact, it's here. I use that for applying flux to bits and pieces like HDMI port pads and things like that. That works really nicely because you get a nice bit of control over it. Probably could do with a slightly bigger one for doing BGA, but it does the job. So stuff like that, again, is useful stuff to have. The other thing that's sort of like a major component that you're probably going to need to invest in is a decent multimeter. And this particular one, and I know what you're thinking, it's a fluke meter, it's going to cost a bloody fortune. This one didn't. This one actually came off eBay. This one is a Fluke 18B Plus digital multimeter. I think it was 79.99, I think. This particular one, now anybody who knows anything about Fluke will know that they are extremely high quality, but they are very, very expensive. Now then, the nice thing is I bought this one off eBay. The 18B, there is a 15B, a 16B, a 17B, and 18B, I think, if I remember rightly. They do have slightly varying ranges of features as you go up. The 18B Plus, I think, is the top one. And basically, these are made for the Chinese market. So they're genuine Fluke multimeters, but they're made for the Chinese market. So they are very low cost, but very, very high quality. And they have a lot of features in them. So this thing's got an LED test, but not that you would use that. Obviously, you've got AC, you've got volts DC, millivolts DC, and AC as well. You have ohm readings, you have continuity, you have diode mode, you have capacitance, you have alternating and direct amperage, milliamperage and microamperage, and obviously the LED test there as well. The various ports and bits and pieces are all nicely labelled up for the various modes you're going to need, so you don't blow your meter to sky high. It has a hold function. You can manually, it has auto range, but you can manually fill that as well. It has backlight. Yeah, it's just a very, very nice, cheap, very functional meter, and it's very, very accurate as well. There are some videos. I believe EV Blog did some tests on these versus the sort of like really expensive sort of westernized editions of the Fluke meter, and the differences, to be honest, were negligible. They were just as good, really. The probes themselves, it is supplied with a nice set of probes, which I don't have to hand somewhere. They might even still be in the box, but because they're a little bit big and bulky for what we use them for. These things here, a fine pair of multimeter probes. These were, again, from eBay. 2 or 3 quid. They do a job. They're okay. They do have the moments that, to be honest, they're a little bit dead at the ends these days. To be honest, a genuine pair of fine probed Fluke meter probes are about 18, 19 quid, I think, off Amazon. They might even be a little bit cheaper than that. It might be about 15 quid. They're definitely going to get invested in anyway, because these are fine. They do a job, but they have their moments where, for the sake of sort of 10, 15 quid, I'm just going to replace them. But yeah, they've done a job. To be honest, they've had a bit of abuse. They keep getting knocked onto the floor and the ends stubbed off. They do have some nice end caps, but I never put them on, so it's probably my fault. But yeah, so for doing that, some fine probe multimeter pins are incredibly useful, certainly for doing HDMI ports and HDMI encoder ICs on PlayStations and things like that. And the small surface mount components, you're going to have to deal with. These things are a must. So, you need to get yourself some of those as well for a couple of quid off eBay, or the genuine Fluke stuff. Is really useful. As I say, the display on the Fluke itself is really, really big. It's got decent resolution, so it's got more than enough resolution for the stuff that we'll be measuring. Like I say, it does milliohms, all that sort of gear. You can adjust the range, ohms, kilo ohms, mega ohms, all that sort of good stuff. So yeah, that's all cool. Like I said, there's continuity mode. You got diode mode, which is useful for measuring components on boards to get comparative readings, stuff like that. Volts DC is always good. You got a really nice backlight. Not that you can see that. Can you? Oh, there you go. You might see. Can you see? You can't really see it on the video. It's not showing up very well. But it does have a nice backlight there, which is useful if you're in low light. Yeah, so that's highly recommended. It comes on this nice little stand here. I've not had any problem with mine. Some people say that the stands are a bit flaky, but mine has been absolutely perfect, absolutely fine, without too much of an issue at all. So yeah, we're all good with that. So a quality multimeter, trust me, is going to make your life a lot easier. Initially, I used this thing, Rapid Test. Yeah, it was okay. It did a job. It was manual range and stuff like that, so it was a bit of a pain in the arse. But yeah, it does a job. And every now and again, when my Fluke is elsewhere, that comes in useful. So what else do we have here? So we have Captain tape and aluminium tape. This is a must if you're doing stuff with the air station, to be honest with you. Basically, this is copper impregnated tape. It's heat reflective, so it stops you from sodomizing components. So, for instance, PlayStations are very highly densely populated boards. They have lots of little small components very close to each other. If you're wanting to work on a couple of those components, but you don't want to blow everything else off the board, this stuff's really useful. It's imperative for BGA rework for protecting things like RAM blocks around the APU and things like that on PlayStations and Xboxes and everything else. I do have some really sort of fine stuff too. This stuff's a little bit thinner. This stuff again was from an eBay supplier, so a quick search on eBay will turn up loads of those. Kapton tape is Kapton tape, to be honest with you. It's all relatively the same stuff. It's cheap and all. It's only about 5-6 quid for a big roll like that. A little roll like that's about 2 quid. Yeah, and to be honest, I've had that 3 or 4 years, and look how much I've still got. This one, obviously, with it being the thicker stuff, I do go through a little bit more. I've gone through a couple of rolls in that in the last 12 months, but it's nothing major, and like I say, it's cheap enough. For the heavy duty stuff, you've got this sort of aluminium tape. That was a £5 for that massive roll from Screwfix in the UK. I use that for protecting stuff like capacitors and things on Xbox 360s if we do them. Not that we do them much anymore, but anything that's sort of like really sort of delicate, which I think could do with a little bit more protection. So, like say, electrolytic caps and stuff like that, I always use the aluminium tape on those. For stuff like RAM blocks and things like that, and general surface mounts, Kapton tape. So that's the general rule of thumb with that. So that's all useful stuff to have. It's cheap, and to be honest, it's going to make your life a lot easier. Magnet wire. Magnet wire I actually use for rebuilding tracers and things like that. Now, magnet wire is very, very fine. And to be honest, this is what I use for rebuilding tracers. So you can probably see it there just on the glove. It's basically copper wire. And it looks like it's bare and exposed, and you're thinking, what the hell are you doing using that to rebuild tracers with? It's actually enamelled. So, although it hasn't got a plastic coating on it, like Kynar wire, for example, Kynar wrapping wire has the blue protective sheathing around around the copper core. The enamelled wire is as it is. It's enamelled, so it's still insulated, so it doesn't conduct across the board apart from in the places where you strip it. But the advantage is it's a lot finer. So that's 30 gauge Kynar wire. This is 34 gauge enamelled wire. And because it doesn't have the sheathing, it's actually really nice and fine. So it's perfect for rebuilding traces at the back of HDMI ports and things. If you rip pads off, or traces out and you want to rebuild those traces, it's very, very good for stuff like that. For BGA, if you're missing pads underneath the edges of BGA, again, you can rebuild pads using that. It's nice and fine. It's going to sit underneath the chip and it's not going to cause too much problem. So yeah, that is definitely worth having. Kind of wrapping wire. So the magnet wire I actually bought from eBay on a big reel. I think it was £5 or £6 for that massive reel of it. The kind of wrapping wire was from CPC Farnell. I bought this years ago, back in the days when I was modding PlayStation 2s. So I've probably had that reel there. Oh, bloody hell. I've probably had that reel since about 2008, 2009. Yeah, so I've had that reel quite a while. In fact, it might have even been before that. It could have been well before that. But anyway, both are useful to have. Flux. Flux is another question I get quite a lot of. What flux do you use? Where do you buy it from? I did have some Kingbo RMA 218. This is Amtech RMA 218, RMA 223 TPF. I beg your pardon. I've used both. Both are very good. This is a 100-gram pot. It was manufactured last July, so it expires July this year. Go through quite a bit of this. Yeah, it's important to mix it thoroughly before you use it. This pot here will last ages. It has like an airtight seal in there as well, which keeps all the air out from contaminating the paste. Highly recommended stuff, either that or the Kingbo. Just make sure you get genuine stuff. Amtech 559 and the little syringes is my favourite stuff. That is really, really good quality stuff. Has a massive rework window, so you can just, you can hammer the living stuff out of that. The process window on this stuff isn't quite as good. You do have to use a bit more of it, but it does the job, and it was cheap as well. I think it was, I can't remember how much this was. Where did I get this from now? I bought this from bjreworkstation.co.uk. I think it was about 15 quid for the pot. So again, not bad. It's a lot more expensive from other places. It's genuine stuff too. So yeah, that's recommended from there if you're in need of some flux. Isopropyl alcohol. I've got this litre tin here, Pro Power IPA. It's 99% proof. This was from CPC Farnell in the UK. You can get 99% proof stuff in 5-litre bottles for about the same price as I paid for that off eBay. So you're probably best off going there for it. That particular tin is about 18 quid. I've gone through a couple of those tins. Yeah, probably in the last 12 months or so. So it does last you a while. But yeah, like I say, you can get the big 5-litre bottles. It does evaporate, so don't ever forget to leave the bloody lid on. As I have done a couple of times. And like I say, it's the sort of stuff you leave around in the end of your syringe. If you don't put it back in, you'll come back the day after it'll have gone. So yeah, it is, quite easily wasted, but it's good stuff. It cleans really well. I've not used anything other than the Pro Power, to be honest. I know it's expensive, but it's very good quality stuff and cleans really well. So that's CPC Farnell. It's £18 for the litre tin. Can't really fault it, to be honest. I also have this stuff here. This is a Casa Tim Cleaner. This is useful for getting thermal paste off various bits and pieces, be it PlayStations, Xboxes, laptops, PCs, whatever it is. This particular bottle I've probably had since about 2008. It's getting a bit on the empty side, but it's perfect. It's really, really good stuff. Basically, what's that? You can use IPA to get rid of thermal paste, but I tend to find it leaves a bit of a film, whereas this stuff has like some, I think it's citrus based, so it actually smells quite nice, which is worrying because I'm pretty sure you're probably not supposed to be sniffing it, but it actually leaves things really nice and clean and shiny, and it completely removes any contaminants. So that is highly recommended stuff. If you need to get rid of all that sort of stuff. It was a £5 for that bottle, and as I say, I've had it since 2008, and I've done all sorts of stuff with that. I've done loads with it. So yeah, you definitely need some of that. Assorted brushes with bean over. The Bosch screwdriver. Now then, I think I covered this in some detail on my BGA equipment reballing. What you'll need to do BGA reballing video. This thing here, I believe, was about 50 quid from B&Q back in the day when these were first released. It's a Bosch XO. It's a 3.6 volt lithium ion rechargeable screwdriver. Comes with a nice little stand in a lovely little tin with some general purpose bits. So you probably will need a bit set with some different bits and pieces in it. They're only about a fiver from places like Screwfix or Toolstation, and we'll get you all sorts of different tips. The common ones use the T9s, T9R security talks in stuff like PlayStations and Xboxes. The Xboxes do have some T10s in there too. The Posi drive, again, a sort of stuff that you're going to find in PlayStations. It's reversible, so it has front and reverse. Obviously for screwing in and taking out. It has a lock there, so you can actually do it. It has a nice nifty little light on the end as you squeeze the trigger, so you can actually see nice and up close where your screw head is and what you're screwing. Yeah, it's just generally nice. It charges really quick. It holds charge, and it seems to go forever on a charge, which is really cool as well. And oh, bloody hell, it's really coming down with hail now and big lumps of snow. Anyway, back to it's like golf balls. Bloody hell. Anyway, the weather's been really weird here in Yorkshire for the last couple of days. The sun's been out and it's been pissing it down with rain. Now we're getting massive hailstones that look like conkers. Yeah, it just generally doesn't know what to do with itself. It's freezing as well. But yeah, anyway, back to this. This now can be found online for about 30 quid from various suppliers. It's also got this nice little fuel gauge light which tells you when the battery's running low, and these little directional indicators depending on which way around you have the direction, which is all really nice stuff to have. This thing, it has plenty of torque as well, so it really does zip screws in and out really nice and quick. I actually used it the other day for taking the headlamps out of my car to replace some indicator bulbs. Which had some really big sort of bolts on there, which were torqued down quite hard. This thing zipped them in and out, no problem. So yeah, highly recommended that one. Obviously, other alternatives are available, but that is a very, very reliable, very strong, powerful little tool. As I say, it seems to go forever on a charge. It's nice and cheap, 30 quid when you find it online. There's 50 quid in B&Q. I don't know how much it is in there these days. But yeah, just get one, get one, get that one. I couldn't recommend it highly enough. Now then, if you do have a little bit more money aside and you are a bit serious about doing this sort of stuff, then I will be doing a full-on review on this. So don't worry, but it's hiding beneath this cover, and it is something I'm really rather proud of. It is my Amscope microscope, and I've not had this particularly long. I've had it about, how long have I had it? About 2 months. It hasn't made an appearance on a video yet, unfortunately, but it will be doing. It's basically simulfocal, so what you see through the eyepieces is the same as what you see through the camera. It's trinocular, which basically means that you've got the binocular eyepieces, and then of course the third viewport there for the camera. The camera I haven't set up yet on the laptop to do video capture, but I intend to do that because, of course, when I do the updated V2 HDMI tutorial, I will show you exactly how I solder things on the ports and things like that. It's got that nice little ring light there. It's fully adjustable on this nice big boom stand. It's very, very heavy. This particular thing came from the States, directly from Amscope themselves at amscope.com. Here in the UK, shipped, it was about, by the time I'd done with the ring light and the adapters and the camera, I think shipped with the import duty, it was about 800 quid. So definitely not cheap. But when I do the review on this thing, you will see why I think it's an absolute must for anybody. I do wonder how I lived without this. Seriously, I did for long enough. It's fully adjustable. It goes up and down, left and right. You can swivel it back and forth, up and down. You can turn it. It's just a brilliant piece of equipment. And as I say, I will show you exactly why I think it's a brilliant piece of equipment on the upcoming review video for this. I will show you exactly why I think it's a brilliant piece of equipment. Simply, there is a little board kicking around for a PlayStation Blu-ray board, and there's a little surface mount component there that's completely cracked in two, but to the naked eye and to feel it with a tweezer blade looks and feels absolutely normal. You'd never see it. To be honest, the board it's mated with is actually broken, sadly. So it's hard to say whether it would work or not in its current state, but I dare say you're probably going to run into a few problems. So when I actually get this up and running and we get the camera stuff installed, I will show you the component. And when we do the review in full on this piece of equipment. But this particular model is an Amscope SM-4 TPZ FRL-3M. It comes with the camera and all the various bits and pieces and lenses. This will do between 3 and 90 times magnification. As I say, it's fully adjustable. It comes off this lovely boom stand. It weighs an absolute bloody ton. You should have seen me trying to get this in the car when it got delivered. And I had to go pick it up from UPS to go pay the import duty on it. But bloody hell, yeah, it weighs an absolute arm. It weighs a ton. Seriously, this stand on its own. I mean, I'm not looking forward to moving this when I have to. This room is going to shortly become my daughter's bedroom at her grandma and granddad's house. So I have managed to negotiate with a very, very good friend who's going to lend me his garage, which he's not using. He had it as a home office. He's since moved out. He's bought a premises for his business. So it's really nicely set up in there, and he is going to let me use it to put all my stuff and to film my bits and pieces. So we've got a bit more room. So hopefully you guys are gonna, we'll get some better video and stuff like that out of this. The other thing, of course, is the thing that you would have seen in the USB. The USB repair for the PlayStation, the tutorial there. I've just remembered it's actually under the desk there because I don't have enough room currently to put it. It's that GW Instech 3303D bench power supply. It's dual channel. Basically, that allows me to squirt voltage into circuits which currently have no voltage in them. So that allowed us to do a little bit of troubleshooting on the PlayStation with the no USB and actually helped us along the way to find the problem. That was 280 quid shipped in the UK. It does have loads of little crocodile clips and stuff like that. It's really nice to use. It's really fine control of the amperage of voltage and stuff like that. Again, we'll go over that in a bit more detail in a future video. No doubt you will be seeing it on future videos as well. As and when we need it. But for now, as I said, I don't have enough room on my desk to put it, so unfortunately it's relegated down there because it's not something we use a lot of in the general scheme of things. But yes, that Amscope microscope is going to get a full-on review when I can actually get around to installing the camera drivers on the capture software on the laptop we're using here. So yeah, that is all going to be done. So basically there, in a nutshell, you have the various bits and pieces of equipment that I use and why I think you should have them, where I bought them from. Yeah, so hopefully that's answered the biggest part of your questions. As always, if you have anything specific that you want to ask, or my opinions on a bit of kit or a place to buy that kit from, then by all means drop them down in the comments below. I will endeavour to get back to you as soon as possible. Please be aware that my time is severely limited at the moment with my impending new arrival, so it's probably going to be a little while before I get around to answering questions and things of that nature. So yeah, please be aware that I'm not ignoring you. If it goes quiet here, it's because I'm probably asleep or at work, because of course I do my 4 on 4 off 12-hour shifts at work at the moment, and that in amongst looking after the little one of my missus at the moment. It's just time is at a premium, and getting around to filming these videos in between work is very, very difficult at the moment. So please bear with me. I haven't gone away. I am still here. I am still going to be dropping content up. My good friend who's let me use his garage, hopefully he's going to be joining me on a couple of these videos when we get everything up and running. Hopefully he can fill in on a couple of these videos because he's very good at this sort of stuff too. So hopefully you'll have 2 for the price of 1, and when I'm busy he can chop content up, and when sort of he's busy I can chop content up, and yeah, stuff like that. So please bear with us, and we'll be doing a bit more of this sort of stuff. We'll be going through a few more bits and pieces too. As I say, I do have the updated HDMI tutorial to film for you guys at some point over the next coming weeks. As I say before, boys and girls, if you have any questions whatsoever, then please do drop them below. Yeah, so thank you for watching, and as I say, I'll try to endeavour not to leave it so long for the next video next time. Please understand, however, if it is a while, then there are good reasons for it. But yes, thank you for watching. As always, we are up over 1,300 subscribers these days. We're doing very, very well on the channel views. We've since, touch wood, had no more issues with deletions of videos, thank God. We're now up to 149,000 views. Unfortunately, about 50 or 60,000 views have been wiped off this channel over the course of the duration. So we'd be up over 200,000 by now, which is a shame. But thankfully, touch wood, nothing else seems to have gone missing. So yeah, thank you very much for sticking with me. Thank you very much for all the kind comments and suggestions and everything else. It's very, very nice to know that you guys are with me. Thank you for staying put. As I say, I know we've not been too active recently, but hopefully over the coming couple of months we can sort that out and we can get some more content up and running for you. I do have some very interesting stuff to do with regards to the PlayStation 4 NOR, backing it up, reflashing it. I do have a machine downstairs which has controller sync issues, which is still prevalent after a module replacement. That is, of course, a flash issue. We're going to see if we can sort of maybe work that out and see if we can get that back up and running too. I'm not saying we will, but we're going to have a go. And of course, any successes we have, then we're going to document them and put them up. As I say, with the backup and restore of the NAND, or the NOR even, we will be doing that regardless. So you can take a dump of your NOR flash, keep it safe and to one side just in case you have issues. We will be covering that in a tutorial as and when I get the stuff installed and how to play with the software, and actually I'm happy with the process. That's all stuff that I'm going to have to play about with. So yes, so yeah, we've got plenty to be doing, plenty to be getting on with, and like I say, we will be having some new content up hopefully before too long. So thank you for watching this one, boys and girls. You have been superb, and thank you, and goodbye for me for now. I will see you on the next vid.